All right, so Under the Banner of Heaven. This was a very interesting series to view. For me personally, just because I was actually raised in the Mormon church, so I kind of was watching this series with two different mindsets. I was watching it just from, the average TV watcher who is just kind of curious about true crime, detective, all that, thriller mystery. And then the other part of me was watching it from someone who already knows a lot about the Mormon church and then kind of obtaining new information about it that I didn't know, because I watched this with my best friend and she was, stopping to ask if a lot of these things were accurate or being portrayed correctly. And I honestly had to tell her this version of the church, the more LDS fundamentalism of it all, that I was not too familiar with. So this show actually explores the darker nature of that, all told from the perspective of the Lafferty family, which they were a family in the 80s in Utah who were connected to this murder that the show revolves around. And Andrew Garfield plays the lead detective on the case. He also is Mormon. And what's interesting about this show is that, he is so protective of his faith and his belief that all becomes into question as he is trying to solve this murder and who murdered this young woman and her child. And as we are learning, we're getting the backstory and the darker history of Joseph Smith and the things about the church. So it was interesting for me to view it, just because, again, being raised in the church and now having to see a show that's kind of retelling it, but also telling it from a very darker perspective in ways that I did not know, was fascinating, to say the least. That all aside, though, in my own personal opinion about the Mormon church, that's a completely different subject. But I wanted just to throw that out there, that it was interesting for me to watch with two different lenses. The show as a whole, though, I thought was well directed. I thought very well acted. Andrew Garfield, incredible job here. As always, I love Andrew Garfield. Daisy Edgar Jones, who is not necessarily on screen every frame of this, but she is the one who was murdered. Brenda Lafferty did a great job as well. But everyone else, all the supporting players, the entire Lafferty family, it takes a while to get going. It's a very slow burn of a show. I would say my only criticism is that it kind of took a long time. Even though it's only 7 episodes, for me personally, I felt like this could have been summarized a little bit quicker. But you know what? If you're somebody who likes more background, more context, then you're going to get a lot from this. For me, though, I could have seen this maybe done as a 2-hour, maybe 2.5-hour movie. Point being, I still thought it was well worth the watch. And watching this man kind of, question his faith and, his own life being, tested because of this particular murder and, in particular, was very fascinating. So overall, do I think it's a terrific show? I think it's worth watching, if I can say. There are things about it, like I said, that I had my things about, but overall, if you need something worth just to kind of learn something new about just this crime in particular, if you are someone who is a fan of true crime, then I'd say give it a watch. It's not necessarily the show you have to jump right away, but it is still worthy of watching for all the things that I had mentioned earlier. So, Under the Banner of Heaven, very, 7 episodes. Even though I had said it kind of felt like it was taking a little bit longer to get through, there's still a lot of noteworthy things about it that I do recommend. So, check it out.